What's up, everyone, and welcome to a special episode of the Pixelated Echoes. We are now on episode, what are we on, 33, I believe.
Yep.
February 2nd, 2025. Of course, I'm your host, 3-Bit, and we got a great show for you guys today. Talking about some Forza and some Sony, as you guys see in the title. Appreciate everyone for jumping into our shows each week. It's always appreciated whenever expected, and thanks to our audio listeners as well. I started getting some of the episodes up. It's not done. I'm doing batch one. I'm gonna have more up by tomorrow, so just be on the lookout. But I'm gonna try to catch us up so all the episodes are eventually available for audio listeners. So appreciate everybody for being patient and all that. But yeah, we had a mixture of responses from our last show. Overall, some great responses. We had Ains on, the editor-in-chief of Season Gaming. We had PTK from the Shop Podcast, and then we had Jess Corden from Windows Central. And listen, always down to hear other people's perspectives, and I thank them all for coming out to the show. That was really fun. I had to scramble. We never had more than four people on the same show. Like we always had four people, or was never gone above that. So I was like, oh shoot, we don't have a little design for more than four people. So definitely a fun episode though. They're all invited back whenever they want to be. Appreciate the conversations. We're now on 460 subs, and so a lot of you guys are watching us after the fact. So just do us a favor, if you're listening, hit that sub button. I want to make some custom emojis. That's literally my goal for getting 1,000 subs. Is oh no, you could get the donation. No, I just want to make some fun emojis at some point. So no, I appreciate everybody for jumping on in. I do want to read one fan who sent me a DM. If you want me to say who you are, then just let me know. But he sent me a message from our last episode. He says, "Hey 3-Bit, loving the show. Just want to say I've been watching since the first few episodes and love what you and Fuzzy been building up. Keep up the great work. And while I never talk in the chat, always keep watching live or on replay. Thanks for what y'all do. P.S. Go Eagles." So, always appreciate. Listen, means a lot. Me and Fuzz we're just some nerds who love chatting and speculating in the gaming industry. So it means quite a bit to have someone take time out of their day, just hang out with us every Sunday. Means the world to us. So get straight into the intro. I want to go to my man sitting in the co-chair who makes these episodes happen in a lot of ways. Like throughout the day, I'm like, man, what the heck am I going to talk about? Sometimes even on a lighter week, he sends me all the articles, and it sparks always something in me to put on a good show for you guys. So got the man in the co-chair, the racing prodigy, put thousands of hours in GT7, Forza, which is very relevant in today's episode. So got the man, co-host Fuzzy Belvedere. How you doing today, man? And what you've been playing?
Oh, I'm great. Glad to be here with you. Thanks everybody showing up today. Greatly appreciate it. Been playing a lot of racing games. Who would have thunk? But no, I it's like a daily routine for me. Forza Horizon 5, their weekly schedules, or their weekly things that they have where you can get different cars or do some of the events. I do that on the regular. Been playing a lot of that. They have a couple of new cars this week. They have the new Challenger. It's a 2020 model, but it's, instead of it being the Demon, it's basically the more streetable car outside the drag strip. It's the later SRT8, like 800 and some odd horsepower, so pretty potent. But got that and a couple other cars, and then hop over to GT7. I mainly play GT7 because I can do the paint schemes for the cars for the race. And I try to recreate some of the Rolex 24, although I wound up finishing third because I burned up all the gas trying to get to the front, because I usually start at the back of the pack just to make it more interesting, and didn't watch the gas gauge, didn't run it.
Is there a difficulty, or like?
Yeah,
Okay.
I always put it on like the hard difficulty, so that way, I mean, it's still beatable, but I want a little bit more of a challenge. So starting at the back of the pack, running to the front, you can lean the gas or lean the consumption. I mean, it cuts your horsepower down a bit, but it allows you to run more laps, or you can save a little bit more fuel to be able to go the full distance without having to make a pit stop. You can also, not accelerate as much or coast before the brake zones or draft a bit more. Because Daytona, there's a couple of good areas to do some good drafting, but wasn't paying attention to it. I hadn't used the C8 in a while to race, so I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm just ripping through the field," and I was like, "Oh crap, I only got it's like 2 laps to go, and I only got 1 lap of fuel left." So I had to make that quick pit stop. Didn't even change the tires. Just came in, got a splash and go, and wound up third because when I came out, I wound up spinning. I don't know if you do that replay later, but people will see me coming up on the Ferrari, and it's like, oh, I'm like I only have like a half a lap to catch up, and wound up spinning myself out, but finished third, but still fun. And then what was it? Tokyo Extreme Racer is another fun one. I know Mav and Steel have been playing it, and a lot of
Yeah.
people have been playing it. I think Black Viking and even Asante have been playing it as well. I think Jasper just recently picked it up as
I was
well.
thinking about picking it up too, but I don't know much about it. So
Think of street racing on the highways of Tokyo. It's it's a fun arcade racer. It's not as serious as something like a Forza Horizon. Doesn't necessarily look as pretty, but it has that cool aspect of, you flash your high beams on somebody, and it's like, all right, we're going to race, and it's like countdown begins, and you hope they don't have nitrous if you don't have nitrous. So it comes down to if you're doing a manual transmission, your shift points, or just having a faster car and avoiding traffic because there's traffic on the highway that you sometimes have to dodge in and out, and you can kind of use the traffic to kind of block the other guys. So if it's only a narrow 2-lane road, try to make sure you only leave enough space between you and that car you're coming up on, so that way they either wind up running into the car or they have to slow down to get behind you. So
uh,
it's fun in that regard. But man, some fun racing stuff. I know we'll get into the Forza topic later, but I don't know. I'm happy in some regard. I don't necessarily agree with all of the playing aspect, but we'll get into it more. But just the fact that we're going to have probably when it's said and done by the end of the year, between probably 50 to 60 million players because of what's added to the other platforms and stuff. Yeah, that's just awesome. So, but more more on that later. What have you been up to, and what have you been playing?
yeah, I've been playing Yakuza Like a Dragon finally. I said I might play it in order before. Like I was like, okay, after I finish Starfield, I'm gonna play the Yakuzas at some point once I'm done with like Ace Attorney and stuff. I basically have like a list in order of where I want to go. But then I just saw the cover of Yakuza Like a Dragon. I'm like, man, I've been wanna check this out for a while. I bought all of them at one point because
Mhm.
I was like, ooh, what if it leaves Game Pass? See, people who have Game Pass, they still buy games.
Yeah.
So yeah, I bought all the Yakuzas at one point, and yeah, I've been playing it. I'm now fully invested. The gameplay is definitely different from other Yakuzas. I guess a positive to the gameplay change is that for me it's a positive. I'm like focusing a lot more on the story content. Like there's a ton
Mhm.
of cutscenes. I don't know if that's just a Japanese thing or what, but you can sit there and you could just be like, I'm gonna eat some food, and then there's 10 minutes go by. But I actually like that. I know some people might not like that, but I actually like dig that. Like I'm a big story guy. Um the negative, I guess, would be like I love the combat in Yakuza Kiwami 1, I
Mhm.
believe it was, where you can like flip between different styles of fighting
Yeah.
on the fly. So like you had this more brutal fighting style, like it's like a red health bar, and he will like use mostly his fists or something. You'll have one where it's like claw dragon type fighting style.
Mhm.
That's gone. And they replaced it with this more, I guess I don't know what it's called, but it's like the Final Fantasy thing where you take a turn. So
Mhm.
I pick my attack, um and then they attack me. It's this sort of back and forth of, oh, in this turn I'm going to defend instead of attack.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm liking it. So it's definitely different. Um, and I'm getting used to, I guess, when to defend, and like that I'm not getting yet, because I'm like, why don't I just attack every time? Like, what's the benefits to just not, I don't know. But so far it's definitely interesting. I'm definitely digging the story, the character, Ichi, I think his name is, or something like that. It's hilarious, man.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone has ever played a Yakuza game, but it is funny. Like, the writing is genuinely hilarious. So I would definitely, if you haven't played it before, it has um this topics that you wouldn't think of would be in a game like this. Like, they had this whole section where these people were protesting like prostitution and stuff like that. You're like, whoa, they go.
Yeah.
So it's definitely interesting. So I've been playing that. I've been jumping around, honestly. So I finished It Takes Two again with the wifey.
Nice.
We rolled credits on it finally, and what I like forgot about the feelings I had when I finished that game, but like the the end, and like how it's done, it's just a well done game, like, overall. Like, it's just incredible. So did that. Yeah, I've been jumping around, man. I've just been playing a bunch of different games, but it's been a good sort of gaming week, in intertwined with a lot of work. A lot of work this week, but
Yeah.
good gaming stuff. Good gaming stuff. So everybody who's jumping in, if you guys like our content, be sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and be notified on what we do on our next show. Appreciate it. I see Big Mad Mo in here. I see Poison jumping in. We got RSJ fan, Nisa Hauer, if that's how you say your name, let me know. Decado, Brett Bingham, Ninja Squirrel jumping on in again. Black Card A, everybody who's in here, you guys are awesome. Thanks for joining us each show. All right, Buzz, I think we're ready. I think we
Mhm.
are ready. Let's jump into our first topic. Let me put this on. So the first topic of today's show I thought we would go over is Sony. Sony has some leadership changes. Um, so it seems like there's a reshuffling of some management at the top as their live service failures kind of continue. Kind of recalling the time, like during Jim Ryan's time, they enacted 12 live service games. If you guys don't remember, they enacted 12 live service games in development, and then 8 of which has been canceled, resulting in this roughly millions to billions in development costs. I think Concord spent alone, what was it, 500 million or something in development,
Yeah.
having more people playing like Gollum than the people who bought that game. It was really just bad and embarrassing. It's one of the biggest
Yeah.
failures you could think of. Some other notable mentions that have been canceled is God of War live service game. Let me put my thing so you guys can see the article. So yeah, some other notable mentions that have been canceled is the God of War live service game, Spider-Man Online, the Last of Us Factions game that was supposed to be attached to Last of Us 2's multiplayer mode, right?
Mhm.
Then Jim Ryan's best friend Herman Hulse, he was the former head of PlayStation Worldwide Studios before his position was elevated to co-CEO of PlayStation, serving alongside uh, Nishino, I believe is his
Yeah.
name. So the original arrangement was that Herman Hulse was focused on the game side of things, while Nishino was focused on platform and ops. So all of this was announced mid last year, and it wasn't originally announced as a temporary solution. However, as of about 4 days ago, Sony announced Nishino would become the sole CEO of PlayStation. and Herman Hulst will now report to him. So Hulst's position seems to kind of remain the same, but Nishino's position gives PlayStation HQs much more power in relation to their previous kind of arrangement. So in a way, it's kind of cool. Just because like the Japanese sector of PlayStation kind of coming back in a way. Um, but we'll see. We'll see. So on the article, this was actually an official announcement from Sony.com, kind of quoting new leadership at Sony Interactive Entertainment. I'll put the full thing so you guys can see it. Nishino appointed president and chief executive officer, and it kind of goes into Sony Group Corporation and SIE, the company behind PlayStation. Today announced the appointment of Nishino to the role of president and CEO effective April 1st, 2025. So this will happen a little bit later. This marks an evolution designed to maximize synergies across SIE that was announced in May 2024, in which Nishino was appointed CEO of the Platform Business Group effective June 1st, 2024, alongside Hulst, who was appointed CEO of the Studio Business Group. Hulst will continue to serve as CEO of the Studio Business Group and will report to Nishino. So kind of what we're saying. So it's very interesting overall to see what possibly led to this. I believe is a live service is a mixture of decisions. So with that being said, Fuzz, let's get straight into it. What are your overall thoughts on the leadership shakeups?
Well, I guess they were testing each of those, Nishino and Hulse in the CEO positions, in the areas that they were most familiar with. And I guess whichever one had the better performing department within that time period probably got the promotion. And that I would say stands to be the case for Nishino. They were better at selling the hardware. They're somewhere north of 60 million consoles, maybe 65, who knows, but somewhere north of 60 million consoles out in the wild. And that was the team he was on. Holtz, on the other hand, was on team software. And, when you have 8 cancellations and can't recoup any of that money, it's, you're sending teams back to the drawing board, waiting for a new pitch to, make a game in place of that. You also set yourself back a few years. Unfortunately, Holtz pretty much, I wouldn't say crap the bed, but it seems like their struggles just didn't work out in his favor. So now his former coworker that he was, had equal responsibility, he now has to answer to him. He's still holding the same position, but I joke with my tinfoil hat theory, that the only reason why he still has that position is because Ted Price was probably offered it and he saw the mess and said, "I'm out, I retire." But I say that partially jokingly, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was a book coming out about that, 10, 20 years down the road or something. But congratulations to Nishino. Hopefully he can get Holst to focus on areas that will make them profitable or more profitable and have more reoccurring revenue. Just for the health of the company. And it's not like they're keeling over and dying, but there is enough of a hiccup or setback between the canceled games and Bungie being Bungie at this point. Some studio closures, and I think there's probably some more in the cards. Like I actually genuinely worry about Bend Studios. They were, when they pitched Days Gone 2, they were shot down. They were relegated to a support studio. Some of the employees got a little disgruntled and left. One particular, I guess the studio head at the time, or one of the founders or whatever. And the game that I think was like their Hail Mary, like their saving grace, just recently got canceled. So they're back at the pitch phase. So does Sony have the tolerance to let them carry out that pitch, or do they close them? I'm hoping they give them the tolerance to carry out that pitch, whether it's a Days Gone 2 finally or something totally different. But I don't know. If I had the choice between the two departments, I would gladly take the hardware just for the fact that it kind of sells itself to some extent. But the software, for whatever reason, at this moment, it feels like, especially after Yoshida's comments, where it's like buy our remaster so they can make their new IPs or newer iterations in the franchises. It just feels like they underestimated the value of reoccurring revenue within their own walls. Like they get reoccurring revenue through PS Plus, but they don't have one of their own games that is pretty consistent with that, like kind of like Call of Duty money, or kind of like the way Elder Scrolls Online money is, or Minecraft money, or any of those games, like even Overwatch for that matter. Like a lot of the games that Xbox has under their umbrella have it where they're making so many millions a month. Like I can't remember who it was that was telling me, but it's like I guess Bethesda brings in 15 million a month just on Elder Scrolls. So
Yeah, yeah, I
it's
was right
like,
here.
yeah, so it's like Sony either can't figure out how to replicate that in their own world, or they can't, or they just don't have the stomach to try it with IPs that probably would have had better success. Like I jokingly say this every time. It's like if I was somebody over at Naughty Dog, I mean, I would already probably consider my job is somewhat in jeopardy because of the cancellation of factions anyway. But it's like, hey, we got a thumbs down from Bungie for our online game. The one that they gave a thumbs up failed miserably. Can we at least try this to at least see if we can recoup any of our funding that we had on this? Like, even if it was just something that was a better version of the day before. Like I said before, they had the perfect opportunity. You saw how many times that game was wishlisted on things like Steam. The day before was kind of always a scam to some extent. But if you have a legit studio make something similar in their universe of, The Last of Us, I think that would sell like gangbusters, not just on that hardware, but that would probably have been able to easily turn that over to PC and cash in, handedly.
Yep.
I maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know what makes a good game. Like I only play a lot of Division, played some Destiny, but preferred Division because it's going to sound silly to say this, but it's more grounded in reality. But like for a sci-fi shooter, Destiny is definitely a great one. It's just a matter of I preferred the Division. I would have loved for Anthem to have gotten a second chance, but EA doesn't have that stomach either. They're much like Google, where it's like if it ain't money making money off the rip, then they don't want to stomach it for too long. But yeah, I kudos to Machino. Watch out for Herman. I don't know if he's kept in that position until they find somebody better, or maybe he'll silently quit, or is that what they say, like silent quit kind of thing, where
Yeah, yeah,
he
because
continues to cancel games until they like usher him out the door type of deal. I don't know. It just feels like there's one half of the company is firing all cylinders and the other half is like lost or misdirected. But hey, if kudos to any studio that still wants to remain alive while Herman Hulse is in charge, pitch something similar to Horizon and you'll get greenlit. I guarantee.
100%. And I was just curious because when you were talking about Days Gone and like Days Gone, from what I just researched, had around 9 million sales. Um, the director Jeff Ross says the game has over 9 million copies. So let's just say it has 9 million copies. Horizon Zero Dawn Forbidden West has 8.4 million copies as of April 2023. So it's possible it has more, but it's around the same range. So the fact that Days Gone got canceled while Horizon is getting like its own TV show, it's getting its own Lego game and stuff like that, is really just preferential to what they think could be successful despite what the numbers are saying. It's really weird, like the hate, the hatred that team I guess had for Days Gone. Now, I wasn't a huge Days Gone person. Like there was things in the game that I really liked. Like I love
Mhm.
the horde mode in that game. I thought it was really unique and kind of cool how they did it. It's just the beginning was so slow for me that I just couldn't I couldn't get into it. But I played the sections later on someone else's save. I'm like, dang, it could get to like this. Like this is what I've been missing out on. So a shame. But yeah, I'm just curious of where what their business plan is like going forward with some of these games because live service made sense business wise to me because there is a lack of that in their portfolio. You look at the top most played games on Sony's platform, all of them are live service games. I know it's hard to make live service games. That's the argument you get with some people. Like, I can't do it. It's too hard to make a live service game and invest in it, and then it fails. Sure, um, but I mean, you have to at least try. Um, if you want to like stay in this type of market, in my opinion. But I guess where they might go is focus in the meantime, maybe focus in on their single player games and have dashes, just salt sprinkles of some live service here and there with Bungie. Whereas Bungie was supposed to be their savior in terms of like how do we do live service games, and they were supposed to mentor other studios. I think going forward, they're just going to be maybe the primary one. We'll see. We'll see. It to me, it's like it is honestly a waste to invest so much money into a game that's about to release, and they're just like, well, we're afraid we're gonna fail. I mean, we've seen rumors that they are canceling a lot of these games because of Concord, of how bad Concord did, that they don't like the perception that PlayStation could be a failure in any way. Like they love how the media treats them as their premium brand and things like that. Um, but that doesn't work for the live service model where you kind of have to fail a little bit. Like you look at some of the top live service games, most of them had a bad launch, but they built up over time. If you don't have the capacity to want to build up over time, that's not going to fit within your premium messaging. Maybe that's what they're saying. They're like, well, we don't want to risk that. That's just something they got to figure out internally.
Yeah, but even Apple has its failures at times. Like they are kind of like that premium brand as well, but they made a home speaker that made a thud when it came out. Now it's a great product, but they just either didn't support it or Siri just didn't make it worthwhile or something. But that I would say is a more recent failure. And unfortunately, depending on how they spin the Vision Pro, like if they make a Vision that's geared for the masses, that's reasonably priced, like not $3,000 or $3,500 or whatever the Vision Pro was, maybe it's 1,000. I still think that's way too steep, but
yeah.
maybe that would sell and that could kind of recoup for what they learn with the Vision Pro kind of deal. But hey, Apple makes mistakes. I mean, Microsoft makes mistakes. They make great products that either are the wrong time or they don't fully, get behind them. Like the Zune was one where
Oh yeah.
great product, but I think their music store was probably the drawback compared to iTunes. And then you had, Windows Phone, which they just didn't stick with it. Like you're not going to have the greatest phone ever in your first iteration. They probably should have stuck with it, until they reach their 10th iteration. And who knows? Maybe the phoning land or phone or smartphone landscape would be a little bit different, but I
Yeah.
don't know.
It's a shame because I really wanted to invest in like a Microsoft phone at one point. Like I like the tabs that they had
Mhm.
within like the apps. I just thought that was like a cool sort of way to transition from the Windows computers to the phone. Like it still has the Windows identity but on a phone. And they had like achievements too. You were able to like play some mobile games and they had the actual achievements pop up like on the phone back in the day.
Yeah.
Some cool features, but yeah, they gave up and now that market it's not closed off to them, but it's almost there for the most part. Like the players are already in there. So we'll definitely see what happens. But let's get to some of the people in the chat, kind of talking about what we're talking about. So Tech says, "I still got the Apple speaker. It hits." Yeah, yeah. Um, some people really liked it, but it wasn't
Yeah.
successful business wise.
They did, they just didn't support it like they probably should have. It was one of those where I think they only did 2 generations, and then it's like you gotta stay in it longer. Like if you're gonna come after Amazon, you gotta stick with it.
Yeah, yeah, and like you said, Fuzz, like Microsoft does have a problem. We kind of like actually Jez hit on this on the last episode where he was talking about the Microsoft products and what they tend to do like historically and stuff like that. And I'm like interested to a degree of like Microsoft tends to either they do two things. They either are too ahead of the game where they're like no one's really ready for it, and then later on people are ready for it. Historically, they've done that. Or two, they're like, well, we're we're not trying to compete with this anyway, so we're just gonna pull out. It's like either one. They're either too far ahead or they're just
Mhm.
like they are overwhelmed by the people around them. They don't really want to invest. But Google, as Nisa pointed out, Google did, and Google Home is pretty big. Google is weird because they start stuff and they do not finish a lot of the times. They're historic for doing that as well. Like their search engine, of course, number one.
Yeah.
They have different like speakers and things like that, which are successful, but they've also launched so many different products and stuff that did not go very well. And instead of just trying to stick it out and be competitive, they're just like, "Oh, we tried. Let's cancel." Which I guess you could do if you have a lot of money. Um,
Yeah.
Big Memo says Anthem would be thriving right now if they let 2.0 drop. Um, yeah, yeah, I think so. If they support
Yeah.
that game, the flying system is so good in Anthem. I think it's one of those games that can make like what's that game you play? The Ubisoft
Oh.
game, um,
Oh,
uh,
what, the division or
Division. Yeah, that
Mhm.
was one game that like died down for a little bit, but they made some patches, and then all of a sudden, like the player base would come back and just be like,
Yeah.
"Ooh, this is awesome! I like these updates and stuff like that." So maybe, yeah, yeah.
Well,
Um,
the problem I think was they purposely didn't look at Destiny or the Division when they were making it, or at least that's what came out in some of the interviews with the devs. It's like,
mm,
oh no, we're gonna focus on our vision. It's like, no, no, you focus on theirs, not that you're copying it exactly, but see where they hot or messed up. Like Destiny, Vanilla Destiny, when it first came out, it was a little on light on content, so avoid that type of scenario. But they didn't learn that, and then the division was, if anything, I would say the dark zone was where it kept on going. It was like a push and pull between what some people wanted versus streamers, and sometimes it was great, sometimes it's not so much. And then they changed the time to kill to make it a lot more
yeah,
tolerable. And but they at least listened to the community, and that's something that EA probably should have done as well. It's like flying mechanic was great, the look of certain things were great. They just need to make the weapons and some of the missions feel more grounded or granular and like you're attached to the weapons type of thing. And
yeah,
if they did that and some of the other stuff that was in 2.0, yeah, I think Big Mambo is right. That game would still be going and EA would be trying to either kill it for whatever silly reason, because EA does silly stuff like that. They'd be
Mm,
like, "Oh, we're going to do an Anthem 2 instead of, continuing to support this," kind of like the way they do Battlefield sometimes. And then who knows? But I think it would definitely be in like the top 10. Like, look at how far Destiny has fallen off on the PC, PlayStation, or even Xbox platforms right now. It's not even in the top 20.
right.
So,
Yeah, and it's weird to like formula works for a reason. Like reference is good to have so you can see what's on the market and see how you can improve upon something. I mean, historically we've seen that with genres of different games. And I something I tell my students, um, I teach animation to students and I teach illustration to students, and they think it's bad to like take reference or something. I'm like, no, in the industry that we do that all the time. We take reference of stuff that's already been done. If you look at Lion King, the behind the scenes for Lion King, for example, you'll see they brought actual lions into the studio to see how how a lion moves, how the bone, like all that funnels into like making a good product. So like it is weird. They're like, no, I don't want to look at Destiny or how they do stuff. Take what is already out there and see how you can improve upon it. Because there are
yeah.
great things about Destiny that people love, obviously, but there's a lot of bad as well. So, anyways, great conversations, y'all. That's just saying I think Microsoft can be a little too impatient as well. Yes, I
Yeah.
believe Google has that problem as well. Yobi says, Fuzzy, I think it's safe to say if Google Stadia was in good standing and kept that Baldur's Gate 3 exclusive, Stadia would have took off like a rocket.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Yeah.
I definitely think it would have had a much better showing. Like, even though cloud stuff still isn't quite across mainstream, but it's picking up steam. Like, look at how far Nvidia has come with their service. Game Pass is still growing, and it's actually getting a lot more spotlight because there's a lot more stuff coming into the service, so it's hard to ignore. Stadia would have been that nice competition for Game Pass, to the point where Game Pass is even improving some of the connectivity as well as the latency stuff. Stadia, for I haven't tried Stadia, but a lot of people that had like tried both were saying the latency was just a bit better, but that could have been that competition to enough to get Microsoft to focus on that, as opposed to maybe well, then again, I actually prefer the owned games being streamable as well, but that's the type of stuff that would have probably made both services better, having that stay around. And competition breeds better stuff for the consumer. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, they Google just doesn't have patience. They saw Microsoft spend 7 billion on Bethesda, and they're like, yeah, we were hoping to just do 2 billion and make money. We're not spending seven to make money, sorry.
Yeah.
And then they
Yeah.
wound up having to give refunds on the service and controllers and all that stuff. So I don't know.
Well, Microsoft is in a very good spot financially, and we'll get into that with our next topic. You want to
Yeah.
lead us into the next topic, Fuzz?
Oh yeah, I know a lot of people have probably been waiting to hear my 2 cents on a recent announcement from Playground Games. Uh, guess what, everybody? I guess some of the rumors. I guess we can now say that some of the rumors, the noise that we were hearing in circles in the background was true. Forza Horizon 5 is coming to PS5. I was on record earlier saying I would rather see that go than Starfield, but I guess we'll find out if that goes down the road as well. But I think in the grand scheme of things, Forza opening up its doors to PlayStation, I think will benefit the racing genre as a whole, because now people will see what we've been raving about with Forza in comparison to your Need for Speeds, or even Drive Club, which was Sony's first party thing that they killed long ago, which until then I didn't even look at Xbox. And then that flopped out the gate, and they were like, oh, it's supposed to be a Forza killer. So it made look at Forza, and I haven't really looked back other than Gran Turismo, but that's because it's like sentimental value and they do some stuff right. But yeah, I'll go with the announcement that they made.
Yep.
And don't forget, if you're on PS5, wish list that thing. Like, because you know you want it, so you might as well go ahead and wish list it now. Save yourself the trouble. But Forza Horizon 5 comes to PlayStation 5 in spring 2025. That's a lot of fives.
Yeah.
The Horizon Festival welcomes a new community of players with nearly 900 cars. Yes, they have, I think it's 893. I'm missing, actually, I double checked. I'm missing 70, but a lot of that 70 is from the car packs that you can buy. I'll get to that later, but
Oh,
with nearly 900 cars available in the game, uh, 40 thematic game updates, and then two expansions. Yeah, the Baja and Hot Wheels,
cool.
and so much more content. Our team is excited to announce that this spring, PlayStation 5 players will be able to explore Mexico's beautiful roads and experience the Horizon Festival for the first time as we are officially launching Forza Horizon 5 on PS5. The PlayStation 5 version of Forza Horizon 5, developed by Panic Button, and if you guys aren't aware, they've worked with Playground Games before. They were the ones I think that did the Xbox One X update
Hmm.
when they did the upres stuff, and I think they even did that for Forza Horizon 3. Well, Forza Horizon uh, 3 and 4 when the Xbox One X came out, and then I think they also did the Forza Horizon 4 updates and stuff for the series console. So they've been working with them for a bit. But Panic Button, in partnership with Turn 10 Studios and Playground Games, will have the same content as Xbox and PC releases of the game. Previously released car packs, as well as the Hot Wheels and Rally Adventure expansions, will also be available for purchase. We're excited to see Forza Horizon 5 community grow with new players on PS5, and we can't wait to see the creativity skill uh, these new creators, builders, and racers will bring to our vibrant community. Now, I guess that's one of the key things. Unlike GT7, where you can only share the paint schemes, or as some people call them, liveries, you can't share tunes. So I hate to say it, but in a way, not being able to share tunes makes a game a little less approachable. So if you're a novice and you want to hop in and you have no idea about car tuning, I mean, sure, you could look at some guides, but I don't think, at least from what I've seen, there aren't as many guides for tuning
Hmm.
in GT7 as there are just for like the driving aspect, like the Apex and stuff like that. But when it comes to Forza Horizon, you have a whole community of tuners. You have a whole community of painters that do the liveries for the cars. You have a whole community that builds some of the like almost like if you think of like Halo Forge, there's kind of like that in the game with their the well, they don't call it Super 7 or Lucky 7 like they did for Forza Horizon 4, or at least I don't believe they do, but you can make your own like races, and that's been the case for even some of the previous ones where you can make your own route and race plan and things like that. But now you can take it to a whole new level where you can do like the surroundings, the environment. You can even make it look more like an arcade or like a Mario Kart kind of thing if you want. But with uh, this coming over to PS5, it'll be interesting to see what that community embraces more: the tuning aspect, the painting, or just the creativity for the racetracks and stuff that you can make in the game, or just the racing in general. Like they'll finally get to see well, in my opinion, the best arcade racer out there. I know people will be like, well, who needs an arcade racer if you have GT7? Well, it's two totally different animals. And the same level of realism that people, praise for GT7 within, the PlayStation community, that level of realism in an arcade racer is unmatched when you compare it to, Forza Horizon. Forza Horizon is the leader in that regard for arcade racers. Whether you look at, Need for Speed, or you look at, The Crew, which the Crew had the copy with Motorfest, this most recent release. But all of that being said, I'll hand it over to you, 3-bit. What do you think will be the outcome when that game comes to PlayStation? Like, do you foresee it being, embraced and, selling a lot of copies, a lot of people, sharing pics and videos, or do you think they're all capping over there for Xbox games and they'll ignore it and, stay to playing Destruction All Stars, or, last generation's Drive Club, or GT7 and stuff. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes into what you said maybe several episodes ago when you kind of talked about like why this might be a better fit than Starfield. And that just kind of goes into when you look at what is currently on the market over there on PlayStation right now. It's not a lot of arcade racers. Like there's some that may pop up here and there, but nothing to this level of like AAA quality. Like Forza Horizon is just on this other level of like what, as a PlayStation fan, if I'm just on PlayStation and I'm looking for some arcade racing game, I'm like eyeballing Xbox and seeing what they deliver with Forza Horizon and be like, dang, like I wish that was over here. Um, so in that vein, I think it'll sell pretty well. It already sold very well on Xbox for, I know it broke some records and stuff when it first came out in terms of like how many people are playing it, what it did for Game Pass, things like that. Is this going to be interesting going forward when you have Xbox games, which is available on Game Pass, and then you deliver that same game on PlayStation where they have to pay for it full price, and it just does something interesting with the ecosystem itself and how people will invest in it. Like after a while, if I'm on PS5 and I'm just playing Horizon 5 and maybe the next one and the next one, you're just like, dang, this is pretty good. Like does that encourage people to jump into Game Pass that otherwise wouldn't have? And that's kind of what we've been talking about. Like there are these people who, I wouldn't say stubborn, but there are people who are invested in their ecosystem
Mhm.
and they're not really willing to leave that ecosystem. Like I love Sony, I'm staying with Sony, games better come to me, that sort of vibe. And what this does with Xbox's strategy in a lot of ways is reach those people who would have never otherwise have come to their ecosystem. So the Forzas, Halos, whatever else is going, it does something interesting where for Xbox it's good financially because people who never played those games before are now playing those games. They're like, bam, I've never played Halo, but I heard about it for years. Let me try it. Where most of the people who have already played Halo, they've played it. They've invested in it. They played Forza. They played all these other games. So it's almost like it's great for them financially. Um, we could definitely get into what that means for the brand and things like that.
Mhm.
But just immediate thoughts. I think it's also just good for the player base. Like when we're considering multiplayer games, this is no console war or anything like that. When we're just thinking about multiplayer games and what it does for the ecosystem, multiplayer games always thrive on reoccurring revenue and people returning to the game. And the more healthy of a player base you have, the more people will just keep reinvesting, whether it's buying a skin or buying a pack or something like that. And if you're introducing a whole new player base to that, that's money and in their eyes. So that's my immediate thoughts. I definitely want to get into a couple other things on that, but
Mhm.
I think it's a good thing, especially for the life of the game. Mav mentioned something that was interesting to me. He said something on Twitter or Blue Sky. I don't remember where it was, but he was essentially mentioning the licensing too. Something
Yeah.
Forza has struggled with for a while is after a certain amount of years, there's a lot of licensing for the cars, and it expires before the next Forza game. So it's like we have to delist the game. I think this will extend that. Like if a lot of people buy the PS5 version, this could extend the life for Forza Horizon by X amount of years just by it being on another platform.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of benefits if you are a gamer who just loves this game. I think there's a lot of short-term to long-term benefits by just it going to another platform. Now if you're talking about like, oh, my console's gonna die and stuff like that, we'll get into that. But
Mhm.
just as a game, I think there are short-term benefits for sure.
Yeah. I,
Um, yeah, go
oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I was going to say, I think for me, the big thing that I like is that there'll be more, variety or different aspects of possibly different paint schemes that that community will make. Like I know one thing that I've seen, quite prevalent on like GT7 compared to like any of the Forza games is that there's a couple of painters over there that make the game or make the cars almost look like a anime kind of style where they put like the thicker black lines for the body accents and things like that. So it's like you have this hyper realistic surrounding, and then you might have a car that looks like it's an anime car in the game by just how they do the shadowing or shading on the paint itself. So I'm curious to see if anybody will take that type of approach because, like I said, I haven't seen that on any of the paint schemes or liveries for Forza, whether it be Motorsport or Horizon. And I know some of the painters paint for both games and things like that. Like there's quite a few people I recognize the names over on GT7 that also paint cars for Forza. So I'm pretty sure they'll be pretty active. But for the new crowd that's never seen a Forza, I think this will bring a different aspect to it. And hey, maybe because there's only GT7 over there. Maybe a lot more people will create like the equivalent of a Tokyo highway for like the custom races and tracks and things like that you can make. So maybe we see an influx of that, which would be pretty cool. I would make more content in that regard, but I have I'd rather spend my time playing the game than making the game.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother story. But no, sorry, finish up because I'll ramble for a
No,
whole
I
lot.
love, first off, like I love hearing Fuzzy's thoughts specifically on this Forza topic just because like this is like your game, right? Like every week when we talk about which games we're playing and stuff, like Forza, GT7, like racing is like that's your genre. So it's for me it's very interesting hearing your point of view specifically on a lot of these. But yeah, I kind of want to dive into the topic that immediately when this news came out, right? The the immediate thing was like, "Oh, Xbox is dead," that sort of thing.
Yeah,
But let's just hit on a couple things. So we discussed on the show, like we knew that it would be more than 4 games. We had a show about that. Like Satya's
yeah,
comments on crossing the red line really just means all games are off the table. So we talked about that. And for me, there's a couple ways to look at this. My thing is Xbox going the third party route is beneficial for them financially. It's like that's not going to change as we're starting to see. They're just going to expand more. So it's just about the value proposition for me personally. Like, where does it benefit you? Are you fine with other games going to other platforms? Cool. If not, then find where you stand. And to me, like you're looking at PlayStation, and they are also seeing how can they expand. They are seeing benefits to having their games be on PC. Helldivers 2 is an example in which there was a ton more players on PC. They had more players on Helldivers 2 on PC than their own console. So in terms of player bases, especially if the game is multiplayer, it just makes sense. And once Microsoft got involved after the ABK deal, once they tasted that money, they're like, yeah, they're not going back. But I think the worry for a lot of people, Fuzz, comes from the place that this will devalue the console. And my comment on that is Xbox has plans to release a console. Now you can question it after releases, maybe, but that's you're talking about another 10 years or so after that, and who's to say where the console market will be then? Like we may be playing in our eyeballs. I don't know what's going to happen in 10 years from now. So yeah, people are not going to like change. I know people are always going to be receptive to change in general, but the gaming industry outside of the user base, which has been stagnant, has always been changing in some way. It's always been revolutionizing and changing in certain regards.
Yeah.
And I've seen outrage about this, and to me, it's something Matt brought up. He said, like, do you care more about Xbox or Sony sale numbers, profit margins, and revenue, or what Xbox is actually providing with value and content? And obviously, to me, Game Pass, all that stuff, I care about more than all this other stuff. Um, so I'm just curious what your thoughts. Like a lot of people think that it's devaluing the console experience when you put these games on another platform. And I'll get into the numbers and stuff like that because I have the numbers up of like the hardware decline and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts, man?
I, I okay. So when they first announced Hi-Fi Rush,
Right.
did it kind of piss me off? Yeah, maybe a little. But I think I stepped back and looked at it like as okay, well, I still have the game on my system. They're not actually taking it away and giving it to somebody else. It's not like they closed the doors on that game to release it somewhere else type of deal. So I get the business aspect of why they did it and then the closure of Tango, but in the grand scheme of things, I think that was probably more of a sore spot. Like the Sea of Thieves thing, I really didn't care. And I thought to myself, with Sea of Thieves, it really makes sense to have Forza Horizon 5 in there just for the fact that it's another successful multiplayer on the platform that's long in the tooth. It's over 4 years old at this point. So we're actually probably going on 5 years at this point, or is it six? It's like 5 or 6 years old at this point. So
Yeah, it's getting there.
um, it's time for the next one. But if they can get possibly some extra funding into that, I mean, they shouldn't really need it. But seeing how Tango was closed and it looks like that was an experiment to see if they can recoup any costs that may persuade them not to close it. I think I'm not saying that Playground is anywhere near in that type of jeopardy, but it could be the difference of, yeah, Forza Horizon 6 is in Japan and it has an expansion for this and this, and or it could be something above and beyond that where not only is it in Japan, but the whole southeast region of the world kind of thing, to the point where you take a plane, you can go from Japan to China or wherever, and your garage will be able to follow you in that, where the map is now 3 times the size, and you have a lot more highway, a lot more city, a lot more mountain twisties, so you can do drifting and stuff like that. So if that's what some of this results in, I mean, sure, the shareholders are going to probably benefit the most, which I encourage you, if you haven't already, pick up some shares, especially with the price dropping now. It might be worthwhile. But grand scheme of things, I think in the long term, something like this is just going to hopefully add to what Playground can do. They're already working on Fable. They're already working on, Forza Horizon 6. Rumor has it that they're working on some sort of flying game, not a flight sim type game, but maybe Crimson Skies kind of thing. Who knows? But we'll see how that works out. But something like this could help fund that or make it easier for them to green light those types of projects. And if it means that they can, expand on the world, like I was talking about it earlier, where Tokyo Extreme Racer, like the highway racing and that, I would love to see something like that incorporated into Forza Horizon. So having the extra funding, yeah, I grew up in a time where consoles had its own exclusives and that was how it went, but I'm not going to worry about that as much as I'm going to worry about, hey, if I play it on my console and then switch over to my PC, or I take my Steam Deck and I want to stream it while I'm on the road, all of my saves are in the cloud at no additional cost. And I can use Microsoft rewards points to get you know, my Game Pass subscription. I can play the stuff the day it comes out, but then buy it at a discount later. Like, I think that's a lot of the things that make, I wouldn't say make me stay within the ecosystem, but those are the things that appeal to me within the ecosystem that make it like a no-brainer. Like, hey, I can get this game in Game Pass the day it launches. Don't have to, come out of pocket. I can use Microsoft rewards points, play it, and then if I choose to own it later, I can go ahead and buy it when it's 30% off or 50% off, or wait until the holidays the following year and it's like, 70% off or more. So that's a big factor to me, but I don't foresee Xbox dying. Sure, hardware is declining in sales, but I think even if they didn't put the games over there, they still would be declining. Like, it's not like this generation is not like the previous generation. Like, even though Sony is, killing it like gangbusters with the 60 plus million consoles out there, they're still a good bit behind what they were in this time frame for the PS4. Like, I think
Yep.
at this point the PS4 was at 90. So I could be wrong at the 5 year mark, but I'm pretty sure it was a lot closer to 100 million
Yeah, yeah.
then.
Their sales. I was going to mention that their sales fell 20%. This is Sony. Their sales fell 20% compared to 2023. Yeah.
So if the console market is declining as a whole, you know, games being more expensive, this hardware being more expensive, everything being more expensive, it's to be expected. But I don't foresee them like completely killing the box. I don't foresee this as like a Windows Phone situation. Like, they have killer apps coming. Sure, they could just sell them and make that 70% elsewhere and be happy with that. But I think they want the 100% within the, 40 million. Because I'm under the impression the series consoles are at 40 million. And those that are still on Xbox One, which the great thing about even being on last gen hardware on the Xbox side of things, you can still stream the upgraded version or the series version on those consoles. Can't do stuff like that on the PS4. You can't play a PS5 only game on your PS4, but you can play what is technically a series only game on your Xbox One. I think they have it where they know they can, you know, make money on the other team and make money or continue to make the money that they've been making off of their current customers. And I've said this numerous times. It's like, if you listen to what Phil said not too long ago, actually it was the business update last year about how you can either monetize your existing customers or find new customers. Well, the console market is narrowing, and it seems like they're always fighting for the same 200 million each generation.
Yep.
So you got what you got, basically, is what he's saying. So you could either turn the screws up on who already has your box and call it a day, kind of like the way Sony does. Like, they charge you the $10 for the upgrades. They charge $10 more for the controllers because reasons. The hardware has gone up a little bit in pricing, even though they've, cut their costs as far as the internals and things. That's them making the money off of their customer base, selling them remasters instead of new IPs or new versions or iterations. Like, they need that funding to put towards the next game. That's, monetizing your existing customer base. And I wouldn't say in a crappy way. Like, typically you would think, oh, microtransactions, that's how you do it, or just sell more games. but they're finding every way to nickel and dime their customer base. With Xbox, yeah, we got a price hike for Game Pass, but that was unfortunately inevitable, and I think that's the case with any service kind of thing. But in the grand scheme of things, they don't nickel and dime you where the controllers magically went up $10, you know, in the US for whatever reason. The prices haven't dropped as far as the hardware. And they were one of the ones that stayed the longest at just, keeping the prices at 60. But if the rest of the market's making 70, are you going to kiss away $10? Easy money. So not that I like that aspect, but that's the closest that they've nickel and dimed us. But by finding other customers in that, blue team blue area, they can get the full 70 out of them for these games because there isn't a game pass available to them. So if they're doing that, they take 70% of that, which if I remember my math right, that's between $49 and $50 of that sale. So they get a nice big chunk of that. Sure, the rest can go to PlayStation, which they can put towards whatever they choose to with hopefully their first party studios. But I think at the grand scheme of things, when it comes to Xbox, they're going to continue to make the consoles because they want that 100% while they're still getting the 70% elsewhere. There's nothing better than the 100% that you can get. And who knows, if you hold the carrot over there long enough, maybe you do get a handful of people that are on PC starting to buy on PC or subscribe to PC Game Pass or something along those lines. Like there's a lot of interest generated on these Xbox games. Sure, the media always goes for the jugular and say, "Oh, they're dead. They're going the way of Sega." But I think more people will be like, "Hey, this Forza Horizon 5 is awesome. What else have I been, sleeping on as far as what's over there? Like, what other games did I, write off as being crap? And this obviously isn't that. So, what other games are like that over there that everybody turned their noses up to? And I think that's a way you can draw more of that customer base into your fold. They may not buy a Series S. Some of them might. But for the ones that don't buy a Series S, maybe they have a strong enough PC to start, buying games there. They'll have their PC and their PS5, and maybe they just buy the games through PC. And little do they know until they get, let's say, that Xbox handheld, that a lot of the first party stuff is dual entitlement. And then they'll be in for a surprise that, oh, my saves carry over between devices. Something that, Sony charges you for your cloud saves, and sometimes that doesn't even work. So anytime you go to trade in your PlayStation, make sure you upload all your saves that day, as opposed to the ones that may have done, like you may have it where it's auto sync, but if you haven't played the game in a month and then you go and trade it in, it might not be the save that you're expecting it to be. So yeah, there's so many things that they do well to keep people in the ecosystem. And I think they want to continue to do that because I don't know if people paid attention. Like, although, yeah, we're not getting MLB The Show in Game Pass, but there were more sales made on Xbox for that game as opposed to on the team that actually makes the game. So, and that's with Game Pass being there as well. So whether it's the fact that you get to try it out, you like it, oh, and I get a discount, that makes it a no-brainer purchase at that point. So yeah, it's far from dead. For those that want to smash their consoles up, I sure I know some of them were fake images or computer renderings. There's no Xbox button on the top or on the smaller side of the console like the one pic showed, but it's like it would make more sense if you want to make that type of statement to have, Xbox executives know how you feel. Show that GameStop receipt that you traded in for the PS5. I mean, yeah, you're only getting 300 for it, and you got to come up with the extra two. But I would much rather see people do that. That's sensible. Smashing things up because you're
Like,
you're
okay,
mad
we
at
already
the
got
company.
got your
That's not
money.
going to get them to change. And if enough people showed receipts, maybe that would get them to change. Like, oh, ooh, okay, so now there's a whole bunch of used consoles on the market at GameStop that will be competing for sales against new hardware. So yeah, that might give them a reason to pause at that point. But smashing it up, nah, because they already got your money. So you're out of whatever you spent on it, and the company already has their money. So And if you have a library that you can't resell, well, now you don't have a device to play it on either. So you
Yeah.
lose twice. But yeah, like I said, I've rambled enough. I just hate that the gaming media, and I'm not going to say what podcast it was, but there are some individuals that still want to act like Xbox hasn't released a game in 5 years. Like there's still this like notion like, well, at some point they'll know how to have they'll have quality and quantity. It's like, have you not been playing Forza this entire time? Have you not been playing? I'm not a Gears fan, but I know it's a quality game. And it's not because I'm not a fan of it in general. I
Yeah.
suck at it. So I'll stay with my cover shooter division, and know my place in comparison for the multiplayer aspect. But like, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
Xbox has a plethora of even live service games that Sony can't even hope to get close to right now. So
exactly. But people want to give Sony credit for stuff that like these past couple of years, it's like remakes and release, what is it, remakes and
remasters.
remasters,
Yeah.
compared to new IP or new franchises or new series in the franchise kind of thing. But yet Xbox releases, 4 games here, 5 games there, 2 games this year, 3 games that year. It's like at some
And it,
point, oh, that's right, they had Redfall, which they eventually fixed, but oh, they had Redfall, and oh, they canceled Scalebound 10 years ago. So let's bring that up as if it's relevant, as opposed to the 8 games that PlayStation canceled just last month. So I don't know.
yeah,
It's
it is annoying because I think where that messaging gets circulated around is Xbox tends to provide a lot of different types of games. So it's like RPGs, it'll be like top down strategy games, and they're like, oh well, that doesn't count, that doesn't count. And then that sort of messaging of this doesn't count, this doesn't count, this doesn't count. Um to the point with these podcasters saying like Xbox just creates bad games. And it's just just interesting. It just goes to show you like either they just don't like certain types of games, or I don't know, but at this point Xbox has been delivering for some time now, and I think it's just going to get even better going forward. So a lot of people brought up in the chat like it's not about like Xbox really delivering, it's more so about now that they're finally delivering, it feels like their games are going across, and we're going to get to some of those. But to me it's interesting to seeing the media say like Xbox is dead, while also having that article up, and then you'll have an article saying like Xbox or Microsoft is number one video game publisher in 2020 December 2024. Like wait, how can they be number one if they're dead at the same time? Like that doesn't make sense, right? It
You're a zombie.
yeah, there's only yeah. How are they coming back? It's like this polar opposite thing you see in the media where they're like, yeah, they sold like 10 million copies or whatever of Forza Horizon, but they have no games this year. It's this thing you see constantly with people, and to me, you're always going to get that. I think a lot of the media has this sort of bias towards Xbox. Um, so we'll see what ends up happening. But let me read some of these chats, and then I'll get into the hardware section of everything. We got -0. First off, appreciate everybody for dropping on in. We had Web Dave end his show, sent a couple people over. Always appreciate when he does that. So if you guys have come from that show, welcome. It's a very chill podcast over here. We just go into different topics in the gaming industry, and always appreciate everybody for jumping on it. Max City ENT says kind of sucks, but us old dogs gotta get comfortable. Our kids don't give two S's about our ex. Yeah, our exclusive. He says exclusive later on. Negative Zero says going for that high score got you looking like a bad driver. I think he was talking about that section. You kept drifting
Yeah.
around these corners trying to get that high score. Yeah, I was watching that too. It's actually really entertaining watching Fuzzy drive while we're talking. I don't know. It puts me in this like whoa kind of vibe. I don't know how to explain it. Preston says Microsoft needs to support iPads too. Most kids growing up playing on those instead of consoles. 100%.
Yeah.
I think it's tricky with I know Google and Apple was trying to block them for a long time
Mhm.
with Game Pass. They won some regulatory cases to try and combat that. I believe with Google, but not Apple yet. And that
Okay.
wasn't. I don't think that was here either. I think that was in the EU.
Mhm.
So we will see. Um, but once they overcome that, I know Microsoft has plans to upgrade their store, like the Microsoft Store, and have their own and things like that. So we'll see what they end up doing. Max City ENT says, Fuzzy, is this your work on the screen?
Yeah.
This is work on the screen.
This was
Max.
like just after the Baja DLC came out, so
Oh, okay, okay.
I had to get used to the driving on dirt kind of thing because it's a little different than in the regular open world.
hmm
It you definitely slide a bit more.
I mean, I'm glad it's him driving and not me because it would be embarrassing. Let me just tell you, it would just be like me spinning out like an hour of just me going like, and me pressing the pause button, probably looking up how to drift somewhere. That would be my footage. We got Chris Coleman saying PS4 hit 73.6 at the end of the fourth year. It was 81.2 by July of 2018,
Mhm.
91 at the end of 2018. It's possible PA could maintain that same trajectory. We will see by July where PS5 is at. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see. Nisa Hawar says Dreamlight Valley still doesn't have cloud save on PlayStation. Yeah, I don't think they're planning on doing it anyways, unless enough people complain about it. But not enough people complain about it, and it's not talked about enough, so it's just gonna stay the way it is. Negative Zero says Gears and Halo consoles only. Let PC players play against themselves. Well, you afraid? You afraid? You afraid? Negative? Play against them? So, no, I get it. A lot of PC people. There's a lot of hackers and stuff on PC. It's a different skill gap in certain things. Like they can move that mouse super quick. So I get it. I get it. I guess it depends on the type of game. That says media. Can we tax this Xbox game? I don't know, man. It might be coming to PlayStation. We had Jay Rembert saying, "Hit that like, people. Appreciate you, man." Um, Preston saying Game Pass is so stacked with great games now. 100%. Sotness says I definitely have to redo some of these challenges like 50 times to get 3 stars. Yeah, yeah. There was one comment I want to get to. So when Winter Shoulder, I love that name by the way. I always want to say soldier, but shoulder. Says I think the biggest issue Xbox will have is with third parties. It puts them in a strange position, and when Xbox gets skipped, having fewer games is now 10 times worse. He follows that up with, especially for a console that would have their first party on competing platforms. So yeah, this is a major thing that people talk about. Me personally, like a lot of the games that do skip, there a lot of them are Japanese type titles. Um, Most of the bigger titles don't skip, but I do get like there are some that's my actually if I were to complain about most of this, it would be that
Mhm.
like certain games skipping because of PlayStation. So that is something they need to work on. That's something they have been working on with their relationships with different Japanese studios. I think as they continue to grow, I mean, them being the number one publisher, they're probably just gonna keep fostering those relationships, especially as you see different companies like Square Enix. They are seeing there's not a lot of benefit to just keeping your game on one platform. But some of the smaller studios, it's probably more beneficial for them because of the fact that it's like, hey, we get that money. Maybe we won't have a huge jump of people jump on Xbox, whatever. So they take that money and it's beneficial for them. So yeah, that's something they need to work on, 100%. It's a negative for them because they are third in the market, so a lot of developers are going to prioritize Sony way more than they are on Xbox. And that's even proven with development cycles as well. Like a lot of developers are going to develop for the PlayStation first and then the Xbox, which leads to like discrepancies in performance, and it's a whole cycle, but that's just the industry. So how Xbox needs to combat that a little bit is honestly they just need to keep fostering these relationships, because Sony is a very powerful brand. um so that's something that they need to work on. I know a lot of companies skip Nintendo, for example. Nintendo's number one, but they are skipping Nintendo just because of that platform's power, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, if Xbox wants to do that, they just got to keep going with some of their relationships. All right, let's get into like some of the hardware talk with this. Um, so in the latest fiscal report, the U.S. company explained Xbox hardware revenue declined by 29% year over year during quarter two, and said that dip was driven by lower volume of consoles sold. It follows a similar decline in quarter one. Xbox content and service revenue increased by 2% thanks to growth in Xbox Game Pass. Overall gaming revenue within the more personal computing segment totaled to 530 million for the quarter, representing a year-over-year decrease of 7%. Xbox Game Pass set a new quarterly revenue record after growing its PC subscriber base by over 30%. PlayStation, perhaps due to the PS5 Pro's launch, had the best numbers for the year, but its sales still fell 20% compared to 2023. So I don't normally just go into like numbers and stuff like that, but a lot of people do mention like oh the decrease in hardware means that, you know, Xbox is essentially gonna die, and they are gonna deprioritize that, and kind of just, I don't know, this goes straight into being a huge publisher.
Yeah.
So to me, how I see it is the software is growing, growth of Game Pass is growing, hardware is shrinking. We kind of talked about on the show that with the console market specifically, you're fighting for the same amount of console users that buy it every generation, and you have to convince them to jump outside of their ecosystem that they're comfortable with. Xbox has been seeing this, trying to fight out of this third place for so long, and honestly just said, screw the rules. We found a way out of this strategy. Let's break the mold of what people expect and make it so Xbox is everywhere. It's on your toaster. It's on your refrigerator. That is an Xbox now. And where people are saying Xbox is dead, I feel like people prefer ecosystems,
Yeah.
especially when you look at Sony's most played games each month. You're like, oh, if I have a PS5, I bet you everyone's playing Last of Us, right? Everyone's playing God of War. No. Sony's most played games are Xbox titles. A lot of them are. And I'll keep saying this till people get it, just because I feel like it's such an interesting point. And like when you get down to the logistics of the argument, like more people playing like these live service type games, and these same games, these FIFAs, these Maddens, and things like that. Xbox is seeing that. And to me personally, Xbox has been the more consumer friendly brand. Like it offers features that Sony does not in its content and services, and that's enough for me personally. But if we're getting down to like, is this hurting their brand? I'm sure it is. Like we're looking at the numbers, and hardware is declining, but they still have hardware plans, and their plans are to grow from, but not to take from. Like their console is a branch extension for where they want to go. Like you have most of their users from Game Pass already on consoles. They want to grow from consoles. They don't want to get rid of consoles and just be like, well, we still got PC and we still got PlayStation and stuff like that. Like, no, it's much more reliable to have it so they grow from the console base and just keep going from there. But it makes sense to me why they're going that route. Honestly,
Mhm.
like they're trying to like kind of have their cake and eat it too in a little way, but
Yeah,
that is going to hurt their line because a lot of people are going to see that as them dipping their toe in a lot of different places. It doesn't really affect me. I'm like there's a lot of benefits to them doing that in a way, but it's also new, and a lot of new things are going to be pushed back by some people. So, Fuzz,
yeah.
your thoughts? I rambled on long enough about like
Mhm.
hardware, and
Yeah.
all that.
I think the big thing that they probably need to focus on, and maybe they go with an outside advertising group to get like a new pair of eyes on it, but some of it is just I think a lot of it's messaging. And various people have talked about like how they say you don't need a console. That's probably negatively affected, and I wouldn't doubt that. But I think the big thing is there's features within the brand and the ecosystem and the hardware itself that are, you know, those types of features you don't know you need until you experience them. Like quick resume is got to be that thing that moving forward, consoles and even PCs, which I think Windows 12 will bring it to PC. It's still kind of up in the air. Um, but those are things that they need to really talk about more or show perfect examples. Like I know what's her name? Charla, or not Charla, but I forget her name. But she got a lot of flack about the whole you're handicapped if you're a parent kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Quick resume is a perfect example of where you should show that. Now, let me just give a quick example. It's like, all right, you're playing the game, you hear the kid either trip and fell and is crying, or your spouse is telling you go get your son before they climb the ceiling fan or something stupid. You can pause the game, go away, not have to worry about it. Multiplayer games you can't do that obviously, but with quick resume you could do that, and then when you get back you get an invite from one of your friends. Hey, hop into Call of Duty with me so we can run a few rounds, or let's go ahead and hop into the division for a little bit and go from there. And it's like you pause the game, you go to this other game, you come back, the game is right where you left off, kind of thing. There's so many things that they could show how, maybe you have a handheld PC or their future handheld console. You take it to work with you. You play it on, like if you take public transportation to and from work, you play it on the bus ride or the train ride back, or maybe you play it on your lunch break. I remember at my office, a lot of people would take their Nintendo Switch to work to play it on their lunch break. So maybe you play that new handheld at lunch, come home. As soon as you come home, you set it down or you put it in its dock, and your game takes off right from where you left off on your regular console. Or maybe your TV has the built-in app. Like there's so many things that they could show how, yeah, it's great to have the console, but along with the console, you have so much more freedom. Like, don't worry about taking the console with you if you're on the road trip. Oh, you got to visit the in-laws and you want to be occupied when they're talking nonsense or something. Hey, use their TV in the other room, or maybe you can stream it from your phone, or you brought your tablet with you or something. Show that type of stuff. Not saying that, yeah, that probably is like anti-social stuff, because hey, if you're visiting family, you should probably be in the conversation with family. But we've been there with some relatives where it's like, all right, we ate. I'm tired of them talking about, well, in my day, it was snow two hill or uphill, each way. No, no, I don't want to hear that. I'm gonna go
Mm-hmm.
play whatever game that I was into before I, decided to drive up here, type of thing. So there's tons of things that they can do, and I think messaging might be their biggest drawback. But yeah, like I said earlier, the hardware is going to sell less in an environment where all hardware is selling a little bit less. Now, is it the finances of, the price of eggs or the price of gas? Although gas, I filled up my car last week and haven't driven it, so haven't really had to worry about the price of gas. But the price of eggs haven't fallen yet, and a lot of other stuff is up there in price. And a console is that luxury that you don't have to have. You have to have food. You have to have a roof over your head, clothes on your back, and whatnot. If you got little ones, they got to be, taken care of and whatnot. So a console might not be in the cards at this time, or maybe you're still on the PS4 or Xbox One. I mean, at least if you're on an Xbox One, you can stream the newer games if you have Game Pass and stuff. But all of that being said, hardware, it's no surprise that the hardware is down. Now, the games, even though they went up $10 this generation, they're still cheaper than most other forms of entertainment. Like, although, bear in mind, if you were buying 4 copies of a game, yeah, it's not going to be anywhere
Yeah.
cheap as it would be to go to the movies. But I remember going to the movies, taking the boys and the wife and popcorn and drinks, and it's $100 because it's a Saturday showing and not a matinee where it's like a discount
Mm.
or something. So it's like, yeah, I could see that type of stuff going down overall as far as sales, but people still want to, get away from it all, have some sort of stress relief after work. And in a lot of cases, video games is that. Video games can be that escape per se, but
Yeah.
if the hardware keeps going up in price or if the hardware doesn't fall in price like it used to, maybe your trade-in of your older console isn't as valuable as it once was in comparison to previous generations. Thanks, GameStop. It might make things a little bit more difficult to sell those. But for those that do have them, you have so many more options of where you can play if you want to continue to play outside of that box. Like I said, on the road or at work during your lunch break and whatnot. But I think at some point consoles will probably, I won't say they'll go the way of the dodo. I just think these PC handhelds, I mean, the Switch really made this a popular thing. Like they were always great at handhelds, and PlayStation had their great handhelds at times. They just didn't support them all the way. But now that you have PC handhelds where it's the full game and not a specifically game made for that handheld, it's essentially the same thing, just dialed back a bit because it's a smaller screen, less powerful chipset in comparison to some builds. You don't have to worry. Like a lot of games will be able to work across the board on these things. And I think that's kind of where things go. Although I don't think they'll always have a screen. I think at some point, these AR glasses or goggles or whatever you see out there from a couple of these companies and your controller will be all that you need. Like a controller, I see in 10 years, a controller will have all the guts of a console in it. So you just need that controller and those glasses, or just need that controller and your TV, or maybe you just have the thing built into the TV because technology keeps getting smaller and smaller in a lot of cases, or it just gets more powerful. But like if you look at the grand scheme of things of like an iPhone from 2007 versus now,
Yeah. I
I
mean, a
mean
lot of
the
phones
iPhone used to
are
be
stronger. Yeah.
like a half-inch thick. Well, at least it seemed that way compared to now. It feels like it's thinner than a paperclip kind of
Yep.
deal. So I could totally see the equivalent power in a Series X 10 years from now fitting into something the size of this controller. So who knows? But I wouldn't panic about the hardware. I think, and this is my key, I wouldn't say dilemma, but the key thing I'm looking forward to, if the handheld plays the console version of the games you already own, like let's say you have a library like me, I got like 700 to 900 games
Same. Yeah.
on Xbox. So it's like if I can play all those on that handheld and I can also play PC games on that handheld, that one device, I don't have anything to worry about. And that might be moving forward what Xbox looks like. It's a hybrid PC console. I know change doesn't necessarily, go well for some, but I think at that point, some of those skips that we made mention of earlier that wind up on Steam, well, that solves that problem. I mean, sure, it would be better if you could buy them directly in the Xbox, store, but sometimes money hatting deals or the fact that, like the ones that did that's what was that stupid game, Quantum Error or whatever,
Oh,
that
yeah.
that flopped on the PlayStation. Like when you have devs like that are like, I hate Xbox, I'll never put a game. Okay, don't. But you're putting it on PC. If somebody for whatever reason wanted to play that game, well, now that Steam is on Xbox, problem solved. But I don't know. I just want people to kind of have some patience with Xbox. Now, if the handheld doesn't do any of the stuff that we want. Let's say it's a like a Logitech stream thing, only bigger, then
Yeah.
we got problems. But I don't foresee them doing that. I think they're going to have things like an AI chip in there for resolution's sake, to upres stuff so you don't have to use as much power. I think they might run a Snapdragon chip instead of the AMD because of the battery consumption. Like if you can get something in a handheld that can last for 8 to 12 hours between charges, with you doing moderate games, I can't imagine like that kills anything that even the ROG Allies and the Steam Decks of the world can do. If they can do that with their handheld, not saying that that's the goal, but if they can get at least 6 hours of gameplay, that's already ahead of a lot of the handhelds out there. Um, but I honestly think that they're going to have something that will work to our advantage within the ecosystem. I mean, sure, you could pay $70 on your PlayStation and whatnot, or you could subscribe to Game Pass, or you could just pay the $70 on the Xbox ecosystem and get two copies. So if you do ever upgrade to PC, or maybe you want a game share within your household, maybe one of your kids still plays on the console and you want to upgrade to the PC or something like that, you have the two copies that can play at the same time against each other in the same game. You can still game share in that manner. So you don't have to buy multiple devices at that point either. But there's, I don't know, it's an inevitability as far as decline in sales in a time like now. But
Right.
if they do the next generation stuff next year, like let's say they make an announcement at the Game Awards this year, then that could change their trajectory, and maybe they, getting that head start, they'll relive the 360. Although it is hard to replicate that because people are so entrenched in their ecosystem. Oh, I got my library here, why would I come over? Game Pass kind of negates needing to have that library because you have access to it for, pennies on the dollar in comparison, and you find the games that you do really like, you can, buy them piecemeal here and there while they're at a discount for being a subscriber. So
Yeah, and we've seen scenarios where you could maybe bring some people over, like the NCAA game, where that was only like it had like a next gen only sort of thing going on, and so Series S sales like soared through the roof. Um, GTA 6 again could be that game that could bring some people over. So if we're just talking about the next generation, Xbox is planning to make a next generation console. So if you're worried about hardware, I wouldn't worry about it for some time. Uh, you got at least 10 years, and then after that, the way the industry is headed, it kind of reminds me of like how people love like physical copies, for example, of games. Meanwhile, like most of the gaming industry, most people who play games on consoles are playing it digitally. Most people on PC, they don't even have a disk drive in a lot of their desktop computers and things like that. So I feel like this is where the industry is overall headed. Like we'll see in the console space how things end up shaping, but Xbox is already planning it. So if you're worried about like, oh, I'm worried they're not going to make another console, they're already making another console. Um, if you're worried about the success of it, like sure. But the good thing about their strategy is they have other avenues of what they consider an Xbox. That I feel like uh, there's certain things within that strategy, like them having their own store and stuff, that Sony has had plans to also do, but they either are struggling to do that or are figuring out the best ways to go about that. So we will definitely see. Um, just some quotes I'm putting up on the screen right now. PlayStation Shawn Layden on a post console war world. We have him also saying he thinks the days of consoles are numbered. This was back in 2024. And then another one where he says games should be shorter as dev costs are not sustainable anymore. Just three quotes from the previous boss of Sony. Like they're talking about what you guys are talking about, like where consoles are headed in the future. in terms of like player bases, like how many people are on consoles as opposed to these other ecosystems. How can we grow from these ecosystems without offending our fan base? Xbox just went full in. They're like, whatever. They can think what they want. And we're seeing how that's kind of panning out. Sony's a little bit like let's test the waters. Let's put one game on PC like a year from now, and then let's shorten that and so everybody wants to do it. In the industry is headed in this direction. Xbox usually jumps in the water. That scenario I've said on the last show. Xbox tends to jump in the pool while Sony like dips their toe in to kind of see what Xbox is doing, and they're gonna get the backlash. But overall, in 10 years from now, in terms of consoles, we will see how they even like. Will we still have a physical box, or are they just moving towards everything that's on our TVs and things like that? Like, I'm sure that we're just headed in the industry that is the ecosystem wars, like where Sony would love for you to easily access their games via an app or something like that. Like a lot of phones nowadays are stronger than the Switch. Like our technology is just getting absolutely ridiculous. But great points, Fuzzy. Let me get to some of these chats and then we will get on out of here. You got Punty saying, "What up, Bit?" You got Winter Shoulder basically saying, "Thanks for reading the chat." Of course, we try to get through a lot of the chats unless there's just too much stuff that's going on. Like in the last episode, we had like 5 different guests, so we tried to get through some of the chat, but I want to get through everyone's points. RSJ Fan says you're correct. 3-bit Xbox's first party games are played more on any device, whether it be Nintendo or PS. Yeah. It's a point that not a lot of media covers. Interesting. Nisa says, if Xbox's next console is a handheld and I can access all my libraries, I am sold. Yeah, I hope it's a handheld. I hope they kind of figure out what they want to do. Like to me, what's beneficial about a handheld is making it like a seamless experience. Like if I'm able to kind of just like play on a handheld, it doesn't feel like it's a like I have to like move a mouse on my handheld and stuff. Like it just feels like it's native to the experience. Then I'm gonna be happy with whatever they got. So I'm actually excited to see what their vision is. If it is a handheld, I want to see what their vision is for it. Preston says Microsoft shake it up by going NVIDIA next gen. Maybe. I do know Microsoft had a whole thing where they made this huge deal with some card manufacturer, Intel. They did this billion, almost $1 trillion deal, I think, with Intel in terms of a partnership with them. Could that result in something to do with the console manufacturing? Maybe, but I do know they have a close relationship with AMD, even closer than Sony, where they waited for the features RDNA. Sony does not have RDNA 2 or whatever people are saying. So we'll see if they want to just continue that partnership with their next console, possibly the last console. We'll see. But
I
or
think
if
the
they
Intel
want to.
thing was for the AI chips. I
Okay,
think
okay.
Intel, because NVIDIA is, it'd probably be better if they did partner with NVIDIA, but I think the price to do so would be like 10 times that. And they're probably like, well, Intel has been a good partner over the years with just laptops and desktop PCs and stuff. So, with Windows software, I totally see a NPU, basically the brain for AI in the console, being probably from Intel.
Mm, yeah, I guess so. Maybe Intel for the AI chip and maybe some AMD, so maybe a mixture of both. That could be actually really interesting if they do that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess we'll see. You think the Nintendo Switch? That's just Nvidia,
I
right?
believe so.
Because
I believe they went NVIDIA this go around as well because they're, I'm pretty sure they have DLSS, not the latest DLSS, but they will have a DLSS type setup. But we'll get more details, I guess. Was
was that
that April
March or
2nd?
something? Or
April 2nd, like the day
okay,
after April Fool's Day.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking forward to that. Because again, I know I've been dissing the Switch in some of our episodes. I've been joking about their tiled grass and then their bad graphics and their shaders and stuff looking like Vaseline. Their characters just looking pixelated. I know I've said this stuff in the past, but I'm looking forward to them proving me wrong for their next iteration. That's it. I just want a powerful Switch. That's all I want. I don't ask for much. You have Preston saying Microsoft make a handheld 7-inch screen that pulls out so you can use it as your cell phone when not docked in handheld. Hmm,
That would be kind of cool.
that would be cool. I do want them to have a docking thing because they could have a hybrid experience where you could still have the classic, display Xbox controller via TV, but also take it on the go. Like, I don't know how they're going to do that. You think they'll do a dock situation?
I hope so because I have a dock for my Steam Deck, and the great thing about it is if you're looking for a low entry fee to PC space, get something like a Steam Deck or like the earlier version of the ROG Ally because I think they're like $400 or less for some of them now with the LCD screens. And put it on the dock. You can hook it to a monitor. Just get a regular keyboard and mouse that you can plug into that dock. And I mean, or you could, hook it to a TV because most docks out there usually will have like a HDMI port or like a monitor port or something like that. But that would be like a good way to test to see what the PC space is like, and then have a portable that you can take with you. But I'm pretty sure Xbox will do a some sort of dock just for whether it's charging or upres to the TV. It kind of makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, that does make sense. We got Yobi saying one of the features from the Xbox app is installing games and installing unreleased games before you buy them. It's a good feat or God feat,
Yeah.
either one. Yeah, I agree. Sotness, when the game crash happens, all publishers will have to make Fortnite modes with PayPal links. We'll see. We'll see. Poison Maniac says Xbox is also going to be competing more, so with hardware features and storefronts would be a great addition too. Yeah, I think by the time the next Xbox comes out, they should have their storefront up by then. So I'm sure that's going to play a part in something as well.
Yeah.
We'll definitely see. Froggy says I'm worried about the actual console going away, being they keep telling people you don't need an Xbox. I feel like something they need to work on with their messaging is I I don't think they're trying to tell people like you don't need an Xbox. I think they're trying to tell people that multiple things are Xboxes. Um, and in that messaging, I think what they're doing wrong is being like, "Oh, this is an Xbox. This is Xbox," and people take that as the Xbox isn't an Xbox, you know. But I think it's just how people are thinking about the messaging in terms of like what is important in like this hierarchy scale. But I think how Xbox is kind of seeing it is just like multiple things are Xboxes. But yeah, they could probably message that better. Especially if they keep adding things to their ecosystem of like a tablet and other things like that. Like that's something they need to figure out. And I'm glad I am not figuring out the marketing for them. Decado says Blu-ray bring discontinued as well. Kind of kills the physical side unless a new format is released. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Froggy says I want something that will still play my physical games going forward. I get that, Froggy, for sure. Um, but I mean, we'll see. We'll see. Like I most physical games nowadays are just licensing for digital. They're just like it's just like you have the game, okay, cool. It's just like a check. I think Sony somewhat of a prop towards Sony is I think they still have some of the actual game on the disc. So yeah. I think the best way to go forward, Froggy, in my opinion, is for digital games to start having rights for digital games, because there's too many instances like multiverses, for example, that's about to shut down, where people
Mhm.
spent like hundreds of dollars on that game. Now they're sort of giving you an option of like, if you download it by this time or whatever, but I think digital rights need to be a thing.
Yes.
If digital games are going to be the thing going forward, then there needs to be some sort of protection in place for people buying hundreds, thousands of dollars worth of games. You had a point, Fuzz?
No, I was going to say the big thing I'd like to see with that digital rights ownership type of stuff is that for those always online games or those multiplayer games, if they should sunset them, make it peer to peer. Make sure that they're all of these games at least have some sort of like AI component to it. So you can, or NPC component, not AI particularly, but at least have NPCs that you can, queue with. But if you don't want to, if the company doesn't want to continue having the servers, I'm pretty sure there's communities out there that would be willing to have their own servers. Sure, they won't be regulated for cheaters and whatnot, or peer to peer is not the greatest experience, but at least you're not taking away something that somebody paid for and have no result to show for it, kind of thing. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I I almost wish the Xbox Vision, as far as that DRM always online stuff, went through, or at least they had a better message on or explained it better, just for the fact that we would probably be able to sell our digital games or trade
Yeah.
them in at GameStop or something. It's like, oh yeah, you get, if you sell your physical disc in a certain amount of time, you get somewhere between $20 to $40 if it's within the first week, I guess. But a digital game, hey, that extra 20 could go towards an indie game or a game that's on sale or something. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to play this Forspoken digital edition anymore. I want something else. And yeah, you can go ahead and do that. But yeah,
Yeah, it gives
I
things
think we missed the
value.
boat.
Like that was the original vision for Xbox One, which was like, yeah, it's always online, but you can trade your game to your friends. It had like, as if you were in person giving the game to somebody. It
Mhm.
had a similar value to it. And I hope they somewhat revisit that without saying like, you don't need an Xbox or whatever they said. Like, go buy something else. Like, just
It's like, if you don't have access to the internet, we have an Xbox for you. It's called the 360. It's
yeah,
like,
just
no.
oh, like oh. So there was a lot of cool features that they were gonna launch with the Xbox One. I hope at some point they revisit it, or at least just these companies or someone needs to start pushing for like digital rights a little bit, because as we're heading towards the future, we're heading towards digital, so there needs to
Mhm.
be something there to protect some people. So if you're spending thousands of dollars on a game or something like that, that all of a sudden it just doesn't shut down, then your money is like worthless, because maybe you
Yeah.
sign something quickly when you open up the game. No one reads those things, by the way. You scroll past it like, yo, you're getting in my way. Let me play the game. Um, but yeah. Read a few more, but I appreciate everybody for jumping on in. You guys have great conversations. Yobi Facebook Marketplace 200 for Steam decks. Yeah. Preston says, "Great show, guys. Glad I stopped in and subscribed. Time for some Z's before work. Thanks for dropping on by, man. Always appreciate it. Never expected. So thanks so much." Froggy says, "Yeah, but if they build Xbox emulation into Windows, we should be able to plug in an external optical drive. Hope they do it."
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I should bring you on the show, man. You bring up some good points. Let me know if you want to hop on it, and we can talk this stuff out. Yobi says, "Facts Fuzzy. That's why Crackdown 2 360 is still alive and popping." Um, yeah,
Yeah.
I believe it was something you said to the fact earlier.
Yeah. About the like peer to peer or let the community run the servers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Oh, 100%.
I that those talks came up again where Ubisoft is like, yeah, we're not running the servers anymore. And there was that talk about it 2 years ago for the Division 1. There are times where the Division 1 has more active players than Division Two. So if they do that, they're going to piss off a lot of their fan base. So if they ever decide to get to that point, they need to figure out something to let the community kind of do their own thing or do peer to peer or something, so that way that game can live on. Because I still like parts of the Division One more in the Division Two, the scenery more so, the snow, the atmosphere. Hopefully that game never goes away, or they do us a solid with Division Three and copy Forza Horizon 4 and Forza Horizon 5 with the seasonal changes, although more like the seasonal changes in Forza Horizon 4 because you actually get a lot more snow for the winter. But yeah, I'm hoping they figure out a way to do that for 3.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, listen, guys, you guys are amazing. Appreciate you guys for jumping in every one of our shows. I'm going to end it with my co-host, The Fuzz. Thanks for so much for joining me, as always, in the co-captain chair. Please tell people where they can find you on social media.
No, just want to start off, always a fun time being on here with you 3-bit. Love just chatting it up, talking about games, and talking about this hobby we all enjoy. And thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks to Web Dave and sending the raid over, and everybody outside of Dave's raid that joined us today. Greatly appreciate you guys taking the time to stop by. And for those that want to hear my rambles and rants on anything gaming related, you can find me on pretty much all social media, but Facebook. Just do a search for Fuzzy Belvedere. You'll be able to find me. Hope to see you guys tomorrow evening at FSP on Fun Speculations channel, 9 p.m. tomorrow. Me and 3-bit might make it a Pixelated Echoes 2 kind of deal. Mav was in the chat earlier as well. So yeah, definitely check us out tomorrow. And then Friday, I have my wife's podcast that we do. I don't know what the movie is just yet, but last week we talked about Don't Suck, which had Jamie Kennedy and Matt Rife in it.
Oh, nice.
Wasn't our greatest movie review, but we always have fun talking about, good movies or bad movies in the horror genre. So do a search for Fright Night with Ferocious Fee, Friday, 6 p.m. on YouTube. You'll be able to find us. And then hope to see everybody here next week, next Sunday, same time, same place. Have a good weekend, or the remainder of the weekend. Enjoy your gaming week, and see you next week, same time.
Thank you.
3-bit, let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, everyone can find me on Blue Sky. We have Poison Maniac putting out some of our info. So thanks for doing that every single show, man. I really appreciate it. Last few questions who jumped in at the last minute. It says, what mics do we use? I use a Rode NT1A. It's alright. It's not bad. It's pretty good. What do you use, Fuzz?
I just use a blue mic. I forget what the one it was. It's not the Snowball. It's whatever. They used to come in silver, but I broke the thread on that one and got one in black a while ago, and then I got the Rode Swing Arm.
Yeah.
So
and I like
see it, but
I feel like it's a good mic, but sometimes it does things that I can't explain.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. And then one last question. It says, Fuzzy 3-bit, is it true that Xbox is in talks with WB Games? I haven't heard anything about that. So maybe
I heard
besides earlier.
I've heard Ubisoft. I actually I need to ask you about that, because a little birdie told me that some Microsoft execs visited them. So,
interesting.
Like kind of the way they visited Bethesda a few years ago, but I can't. I got one source so far. I need 2 more so I can be like Jez and say it with authority. Kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm interested. We'll talk. But no, appreciate everybody for jumping on in. Legendary Obi says, favorite show on the Sunday night. Thank you, man. Much appreciated. As always, we end the show with a thank you to everyone who follows our content. If you guys agreed with us or not, let us know in the comment section down below. We had some people be like, man, I don't like you bring some guests on and stuff like that. Or okay, sure. Let us know what you liked about it. We'll hit you up and just let us know what we can do and improve the show. All ears here. For our audio listeners, be sure to tell others about the show. Leave a like, tell your friends, tell everybody about the show. All support is appreciated, never expected. I am 3-Bit, and we are signing off. We'll see you guys tomorrow. If you guys are on FSP tomorrow, Fun Speculation, we'll do Fun Speculation, or I guess Pixelated Echoes Part 2, as was said, and that will be a fun show. So I will see you guys on the next episode of the Pixelated Echoes. Bye, y'all.